My name is Nina Testa. I work in the Alumni Relations Office. I work specifically with young alumni, and I've been working with the senior class and with Rachel on the senior class gift and with SGA. We wanted to do, this event was actually scheduled in person for April. We wanted to do it to give seniors a chance to talk to some recent alumni, talk to those alumni about their experiences at PACE and their experiences graduating and networking, finding a job, even personal things like finding an apartment, just general life after PACE, what they wish they knew, what they wish someone had told them when they were graduating, those kinds of things. So we have Gabriella Ferrara. She graduated Leuven in 2016. And she is going to be interviewed by Rachel, who is a senior class president. And so how this is going to work, we also have Helene and Paula from Career Services. So they're going to be here as well to answer questions from Rachel. So how it's going to work is Rachel's going to turn it over to Gabriella to introduce herself, give a little background on her and her job. And then Rachel's going to ask a couple of questions that SGA has come up with for both Career Services and for Gabriella. Then we're going to turn it over to everyone else. So if you have a question, type it in the chat box and stay muted, and Gabriella or Rachel can read your questions to Gabriella. So basically that's how it's going to go. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Nina. So hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Rachel Moreno, and I'm Senior Class President. I'm excited to be here and excited to have you guys all tune in with us and taking the time out of your evening to be here with us from remote learning. And if you're working at home, thanks for being here after your day of work as well. So again, once again, I'm excited to have Gabriella Ferrara here with us tonight. And once again, just please make sure that you do type in your questions and you keep yourself muted to help us have a smooth path for tonight. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Gabriella, and she can introduce us and talk a little bit about her time and her journey at PACE and to now. So Gabriella.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I know this is some weird times, so I'm glad that we were able to find an alternative to still have something, because I do think it's important now more than ever, probably, because there's a lot changing in the world and work environments, living environments, and all of that. So my role at PACE was multifaceted. I was the Leuven president with SGA. I was the Beta Gamma Sigma president, the director of marketing for Alpha. I also was a full-time intern with KKR, private equity firm, my senior year at PACE. So my major was finance, graduated in the Forsheimer Honors College. I also got the Leuven Alumni Association Award, Trustee Award. So long story short, I was very active, I think, at PACE. And I thought I think it was such a great experience for me. I was, able to get offered a full-time job at PwC. It's in their, I don't even remember what practice I started in because I've switched, risk assurance, I think it was. Yeah, risk assurance. And I started there, which is more on the consulting side, so not auditing, tax. I don't know any of that stuff. That's not necessarily my forte, so I was kind of the one-off going into the Big Four firm. So went on the consulting side. My background was financial services, so I had a bunch of banks as my clients. I realized I wasn't necessarily fond of it, so within 6 months at the firm, I switched into a new group called New Ventures. At the time, it was just when it started. It's essentially a corporate VC model. So we take our corporate funding from the partners, and we actually are incubator for software technology. So I helped bring to market a blockchain solution. So I'm a blockchain specialist. I helped build the product, business analysts, and then marketing and sales. I realized I really liked sales and business development. So from there, I actually moved over to another product that focuses on the franchise space. So currently I'm selling a Fran Suite, which is a suite of products helping the franchise industry operate, promote, and grow within their own network. So I have a different type of background for being in a Big Four from PACE. I'm not the CPA route, but I would say what's been the most interesting, given I've graduated already 4 years ago, which is absolutely crazy how time is flying, is the ability to have mobility. And I think that PACE taught me a lot about that. And I think it's awesome that I've been able to do it too at a Big Four firm, which is exciting. So that's just a little bit about me. And I've tried to give back. I'm also on the corporate rep for PACE, representing PwC. And then I'm also on a couple of nonprofit boards. So I'm on the Emerging Leaders Network for the New York Women's Foundation as well. So that's who I am. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gabriella. And as you can see, Gabriella is one who was a busy bee, obviously, at PACE. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience. Definitely means a lot for someone with your caliber and your degree, your experience. So this is amazing. And I do want to say it's refreshing to have you not from the CPA route, because I feel like we hear enough of that from career services side, but from you, that's really exciting. If I can, I'll just start off with the first question, which is a really basic question. How did you start your job search? And can you describe the time of what year you were at PACE when you decided to just start that serious job search?
Of course. And I actually love telling this story because as I'm a non-typical person in PwC, I also did not do the typical route of getting to PwC. So I never interned there. I wasn't fed into the program. I actually did not go through interviews at PACE either through PwC. So I did not get my job in that fall recruiting cycle. So for me, I was actually the one-off scenario where it was my senior year. Most people, for the most part, at least in banks and I'd say in the Big Four, you have your job offers already. I did not. So it was stressful. It was a little different, unique experience because I felt that because of everything I did at PACE and all the experiences I had with internships that I should have a job by now. So what I did is I networked. I, tapped into all my networks that I had, leveraging, Dean Braun, leveraging who I knew at PwC, Andy Bergman, who was the corporate liaison for PwC for PACE. I was just, constantly on the phone emailing people. And actually what ended up happening is I was at KKR as an intern. PwC was a consultant of KKR. The partner poached me and basically said, I know KKR can't offer you a full-time job, but we would like to offer you a full-time job. So
Wow.
I ended up going through the super day in December by myself, literally. And the next day I was offered a job, which was nice. So it was very not the usual experience or route, but I think it also just plays very well into my career path because everything I've been doing, jumping around even internally, it's just been because of networking. And I think that's the number one lesson. So, there's always hope, but I think what's most important is, make sure people know who you are, because even at a Big Four firm, which has a certain headcount, has usually these certain really rigorous structure and how to recruit, if they want you, they'll figure out a way. And that's what I learned in my experience because they basically added a head count for me, which is, it just speaks volumes to, it's all about you as an individual. So just make the most of it. It's not the end of the world. And especially now, I think more than ever, there's going to be a lot of different opportunities that we never thought of before because of what's happening in the world. And I think that as long as you're doing what you can for your personal brand, that'll come through. So that's how I got my job.
That's awesome. So I guess it's just as true as what they say before to tell us all the students, self-advocacy is key when it comes to networking. It's just something that you have to be willing to do, especially to put yourself out there. And in your situation, you didn't take the traditional route where PACE Career Services could help you in the full capacity. You did it on your own, which is really awesome. So You heard it from Gabriella.
No,
Really
I mean,
good.
look, they all aided me. I mean, I was, Helene and I were very close. It's just more of, there's things that happen in that structure, and sometimes it doesn't always work out like that.
Mhm.
And it's important because career services was awesome. They were the ones that were also providing me with opportunity, like out of the box opportunities as well. So,
Yeah.
but it still goes back to self-advocacy.
Right. And since you were so busy and like putting in that extra work to make sure that you put yourself out there to find the best opportunity that worked for you in the long term, like did you find yourself pulling away from the extracurriculars and time with friends and other social engagements so that you could focus on that job search? And if you did, like, did that help to pull away, or did you somehow manage to balance it all?
I was a really good juggler. For sure, because even during all that, I like took a weekend and went to Oktoberfest in Germany during my senior year, because why not? So I think that it's all about what keeps you sane. For me, juggling all those things actually kept me on schedule, because I was full-time interning at KKR. I was still a full-time student, and I still was part of all those clubs, and I was helping run events. I was doing the Lubin Spring Banquet, all while trying to get a job and while writing a senior thesis for the honors college. So, but that's how I am as a person. I'm a calendared out. Even like my workouts, when I eat, is like calendared. So I don't know if that's for everyone. I even calendar when I have my friends book me months in advance for that reason. But I think that's all comes down to your time management. Like you know what you need to balance. You'll know what you need to give and take. I stepped away from a couple things just because I said, for me, I didn't value it enough for it to be a priority. And it was pulling me away when it didn't necessarily matter as much. So I think that you can always recalibrate what makes sense for you, and you know yourself best. I mean, you can either do all those things or not. Was I over, exuding myself at times? Probably, but would I change it? No. So I think it's all about how you are as an individual, and I can't say to you that you should have done everything I was doing, because if you saw my calendar, you'd be like, you're a psychopath. But that's just, it's just you as a person and as an individual. So whatever makes the most sense for you. I don't think there's a right or wrong to doing too much. I mean, probably when you're doing too little, but I think it's just a healthy balance.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to ask, like, what was the transition like for you from being a college student to now a full-time working adult? And what are some of the obstacles you faced, if you did face any?
I think so. On a logistics front, when you're living in Manhattan as a student and you're not paying for bills, and then all of a sudden you become a working person and you're not getting funded for your bills, but you're still trying to live your same lifestyle, that's a huge wake-up call for me, because I was doing everything I was used to doing, like going out with my friends, going to events, doing all these things, but at that time I wasn't paying bills, like actual bills. And I think for us, it's a blessing and a curse, because we get to live in New York City during college. And then when you transition, you need to know how to manage your own money and your finances and be an adult, and actually know what that means. Because I think that to me was something my friends, maybe they moved home, maybe they saved up money, but they never lived in Manhattan. They lived in a campus, in Massachusetts. So we are already affected by the normal cost, but then now we have to pay for it, our own. And I think money management is number one that you need to be aware of, because we are really blessed that we get to be in the city our whole time. But when you actually have to live in the city and become a full-time employee, there's other implications. I also think when you transition to full-time, you very quickly realize how much extra time you have on your hands, in terms of we're used to living in the city. We have school, we have work and extracurriculars. Okay. So you can pack your whole day. Then you go to work, you get out at 6, you go home, then what I do. Right. And I think that's a different transition, because you'll see it. There's a lot of friends that all of a sudden they get really complacent, and it's like they come home from work, they just watch Netflix. They come home from work, they just watch Netflix. And that's, I don't know, it's not in my blood, you know, as PACE students. I think we love to be busy and to do work and to be really active. So that's why I got involved with other nonprofits. I'm on boards for nonprofits. I have meetings with these people. I network. I try to get in networking groups, giving back to PACE, like doing things like this. For me, I think you'll get really, it's just a weird situation where you come home from work and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do homework. You have to do, it's just your time. And I was like, in the beginning, you're kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to just go out to eat again. Like, what else can I do? So I think that's another transition is, you know, finding ways to have either networking groups, if there's nonprofits you want to be a part of, trying to find out if they have junior boards, volunteering. I mean, and then like even extracurriculars outside of that is, you know, working out and taking self-care, you know, what's important to you, and joining those types of communities as well. I think that's the biggest transition, is you'll realize that when you come home and you actually don't have things to do like homework or writing papers, it's definitely different. So those are the two things I'd say is like, if you want to stay active, find ways to stay active. And then second would definitely be money management.
I'm glad you mentioned that there's time on more time on your hands now once you're like out of college, because prior to PACE, I actually took a gap year in my 4-year career and my going to school. And so I noticed that when I was just working, I would come home and be like, am I really just going to sit on the couch and do Netflix? So no, I was just like, let's make time to volunteer. So I started volunteering before I came to PACE, because I was like, there's no way I'm just sitting on this couch. I started hosting more gatherings at home, scheduling people. Like I'd make sure even to hang out with friends, like even though I had time for happy hours, it would be, I have to schedule it or else it means nothing. And I think what you say is so crucial to, like, if you are not that person that can just sit home and be on the couch from like 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., you have to find something else to motivate you and just keep your sanity, I guess, as an adult.
Yeah, because I'll say I do the same thing that I did in college. Is now I have meetings after work that aren't work, and then I have to meet with clients, and then I come home and then I work out in the morning, and like my whole day is like this again. But that's just how I am.
Yeah. I do want to ask a question in regards to the pandemic. It's nothing, I hope it's not too heavy of a question, but it is something that I think someone like myself who is currently working, currently on pause of working, right, because of all of this. And I don't know how other students are currently working from home as well on top of doing schoolwork. So what have you noticed has changed in your job in response to the current pandemic?
Yeah.
And how have you dealt with those changes?
Yeah, so great question. I'm very fortunate. You know, I have my job as is, and it's not going away. My job is much harder right now because as a person who is in business development to the franchise space is basically what is bread and butter of our economy, and it's very affected right now with the PPP loans, understanding what's essential, non-essential, open, closed, etc. And, you know, just seeing how different states are going to reopen. You know, it's really an interesting time in my job, because instead of trying to be in a sales perspective, being a thought leader is really important for what I'm doing right now. So hosting webinars, being able to talk to a bunch of different brands and, you know, articulate how we can support them, etc. So for me, that's turn is my actual job is very face-to-face focused. I travel almost every week. That obviously is pause. And that's a really big shift for me as an individual, because I'm not used to being stuck in the same place for so long. But then secondly, I'm used to seeing a bunch of my prospects and clients face to face all the time. And I'd say we've gotten really innovative on how to do that. So we've been hosting, some various types of happy hours with different types of groups. Like I said, we're hosting different webinars to really just like bring the community together. What I'd say is unique about this time is there's still jobs that are very much being hired right now. I think that's not necessarily highlighted as much. I know there's obviously lots of furloughs and layoffs, but there's still a lot of companies that need staff more than ever. And it doesn't mean that it's essential either. It could just be that, there's a lot going on from an operations perspective. There's a lot going on from a technology right now perspective. There's a lot of companies that did not have the infrastructure in place to go remote entirely, like our whole team. So I'd say that in my personal opinion, this is actually an interesting time for graduates because there's a lot of support that's needed in terms of being innovative in technology, in operations, and all those types of roles that, it might be a way into a company you might have never thought of before, but because you could be thought as a leader, just given, some of your experience to date with certain technology, that's something that could be very appealing. And I'd say that's, the message. I think that you'll see the industries that are obviously affected. I mean, we all can tell what's really being hit right now, considering a lot of companies are even trying to file bankruptcy. Some maybe should have filed for it long ago, but that's just neither here nor there. But I think that when we come out of this, there's going to be this term, new normal, as everyone's saying. I don't think there's anything really normal about it. I think it's just consumer behaviors are changing. They're going to change for a long time, and a lot of what's happening now will change forever. The way that we're used to purchasing items. If you're a finance major, think about going into fintech. Technology products for finance is going to boom. No one is going to want to carry cash. No one's going to want to touch cash. That's just probably the way of the future. So thinking about maybe even little niches in the market right now that are you're seeing companies that had to innovate in 3 weeks, and they've been trying to do it for 3 years. So finding certain types of those little pockets where you can really differentiate yourself. We all have time on our hands right now, read up on it. Look at what's going on in the market. I think we're going to see a lot come out of this. I do think there's going to be a lot of industries that come out booming because they were able to pivot and actually create new revenue streams that they'll be able to have going forward. So find those companies and, follow them, engage with them. I mean, this right now is the time where digital is key. Whether that's marketing, whether that's finance, whether that's anything, I think now's the time to just capitalize on what you as, your generation is, being very technology savvy, figuring out ways to capitalize on that and see where there's like gaps in the market. I think that's, there's a lot of positive coming out of this negative, and I think that we'll be able to grow from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Gabby, for that, because I think what we've noticed, a lot of us seniors are having that conversation, is our career focus now going to change, where we have to make adaptations or alterations to our plan and our careers, and do we now what's needed currently in the world because of this, and what that our future looks like. So I think that's very essential from what you said, so thank you. I'm going to take this time to ask, open up questions to the floor. Students, if you have any questions for Gabriella or Career Services, before I kick off any questions for Career Services myself, you can type them in the chat box and I can ask them on your behalf, and we'll all see them here in the chat box as well. But I can give us a few minutes, Nina, if you want to wait to see if any students want to type in some questions. But in the meantime, I can start off with a question or two
perfect.
for
Go ahead,
services
Rachel.
if we like. Okay. So, Helena and Paula, outside of the traditional sense of how we normally would prepare for a job interview or for an application, or something that we should consider when preparing for job applications and interviews now, especially amidst all
Yeah,
this?
well, sure. So I'll kick it off, and then Helene, just feel free to jump in. So with this, there's almost been a shift, right? A pivot that we really need to be thinking about. Our interviewing is going to be all virtual, right? During this time, that's the way it is. Maybe some phone calls as well. So we need to be very well practiced at the virtual interview process, and of course we can help you with that. You also need to be thinking about your resumes, and as Gabriella, you are a rock star, truly. I wrote down so many sound bites of the things you were saying. I'm blown away at how wise you are. You know, making something positive out of something negative. So we know we've all done this pivot to online courses, right? So now you have become acquainted with working virtual, okay? And you want that to come through because employers right now are going to be looking for that skill. They want to know that you know Zoom and Skype for Business, that you are multitasking and you are going into work groups and working with teams online, and you are accomplishing. This is most likely a new skill for some of us, and that needs to shine through because we don't know where this is going. You may all get that summer internship and you may start remotely, and then later you may transition to being on site, right? When things start to turn around. So you really want to think about that. And you don't want to go on pause in any way. You want to continue, in Gabriella's words, the self-advocacy and the networking. And there's so many ways to do that virtually when we think about it, new ways. So Career Services is bringing employers to you daily. So check on Handshake, the events, and these are opportunities to network virtually that we bring you, and some are locally, some are nationally. Okay, we are also bringing you opportunities for the first time that are remote, and we push these out. Remote gets pushed out twice a week to you, on Mondays and I believe on Thursdays, and in between we're pushing out internships that we know are still good and active because we're only sending you out the most recent. We don't want to go looking at where we were a month ago and what was posted a month ago too, because the world changed.
Yeah.
The world changed fast, so we need to stay very, very current, and that's what we're doing with our students. So you need to do this pivot, and in your pitch, this needs to come through. It's not just coming through in the resume or the cover letter. It's all your pieces, right? All the pieces of your brand, from the resume, the cover letter, the pitch, what's in your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profiles are becoming more and more important because that's a virtual networking piece. And with that, I'll throw it over to Helene.
Thank you. Very thorough. Well said. Gabriella, thank you for using that term pivot. I keep saying shift, paradigm shift. And Paula just comprehensively shared what we offer, how we coach students, even before the pandemic hit. You have to be in it. And we are here to support you, not only as counselors, but coaches. I'm finding that especially now in the past 6 weeks, going on 7 weeks now, we're working with students and thinking outside of the box. Really mapping out, kind of like Gabriella, really being very focused, very intentional, but also not limiting, not getting stuck on an industry, maybe thinking of, okay, what can I do in the here and now? How can I stay relevant? How can I keep the skill set going? So it really could be something that you're not even thinking of. But again, something in the here and now, even if it's an interim, if it's a project. So when we meet with students, it really is like, okay, what have you been doing? What do you need to do differently? What can we do for you? Here's the opportunities that we have. Where are you applying? How can we meet in the middle? To really be more hands-on with our students, especially those who are graduating, so that they can land opportunities. So really just thinking outside of the box. Our executive director uses this term, following the demand, like what industries, what opportunities are more in demand than others, you know, just following the markets. So really that's the strategy. And it really has been, but it has to be even more so now as there's this pivot season.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, because a lot, it's funny, you know, a lot of this has been in place for a really long time. A lot of companies have been built to be remote for a long time, but now it's like everyone's remote. How are we going to function, right? And it's like, well, the infrastructure was there. We're just making sure that it's better and it's enhanced. And I think, you know, it's good to realize that, of course, career services has always been giving the, you know, students what is in demand. But I think it's just about the messaging of, you know, we're making sure everything is timely for right now. Because if you would have talked to everyone in February and talked about what their hiring needs are, specifically like Delta, prime example, Delta was going to hire hundreds of thousands of employees in February. And now you talk to them now, and now they've laid off thousands of employees. You know, I think you just have to be realistic of where we are as a society and an economy, in a job market right now. And I think, Paula, you said it, LinkedIn is amazing. I would highly recommend, if you do not have a souped up LinkedIn, to get one. Make sure your, you know, description is actually what your skill set is. I mean, even if your skill set is Zoom, Google Drive, G Suite, any of those things, put it there. Even if it's design applications, Adobe InDesign, anything of that nature. You know, there's so many things right now that are even freelance type of jobs. People literally search that, and, you know, you want to come up. Try to get endorsements, try to get recommendations, make sure your descriptions both on your internships and your extracurriculars on there. I had all my extracurriculars on there, that I was, you know, representative of the Lubin School of Business. Even now I have all my nonprofits I'm on the board of, you know, giving descriptions. You know, you need to have that, because the first thing I do when I get anyone's name is I Google them on LinkedIn. If you don't show up, you're suspect to me. Like, off the bat, like, I think you don't exist, you know? And I think that's just where we are. I mean, people need to have a presence, and that's your personal brand. Post articles. We have nothing but time. Read webinars, comment about webinars, posts that people are, you know, writing about, blogs, thought leaders, share articles you find that are relevant. There's all these algorithms that LinkedIn puts in that the more that you actually add value and you're sharing different types of links to articles, then you're getting filtered to the top, as long as you do the hashtags correctly. So just think about that. I mean, it's, you know, you have time. Post 2 to 3 times a day right now. Like, well, just do it. If not, you know, post, you know, at least 3 times a week. But it could be anything. I mean, we're all home. We're all experiencing similar things. You know, just try to engage with a different set of eyes, because that's how my work's been. You know, I have a personal brand now on LinkedIn. You know, you go trending, it helps. It helps your business case too when you're trying to get promoted and things of that nature. So, you know, the more that you can gain a following now, the better. That's I think the power of LinkedIn is incredible.
I agree.
I agree as well. I do want to ask to revert back to Paul and Helen, how you guys mentioned that you're still putting out, you're still sending out emails, or career service still sending out emails with job opportunities, especially more remote job opportunities to all of us students at PACE currently. what would you say to the student that feels that none of those remote job opportunities pertain to anything they would be interested in? It doesn't even, they can't relate. They don't feel motivated to even apply for that position. What would you say to those students?
So I would say the very first thing is contact us, right? Because those are just that's just a window into
Sampling, yeah.
and into some things that are available. So when I start to hear that someone is really, focused in a certain area, we want to work with them. We want to hear it. We want to work on the job search with it. We want to make sure that the resume is targeted in that way. And then we want to see how we can go to the demand, right? Think outside the box, like Gabriella said. And also, like Helene said, say you are a marketing major. Well, we know that marketing is part of the infrastructure of any company in any industry. So we need to go where the demand is with that. But I would say to that person that is having a hard time and they just don't see what's coming up, that it suits them, that it speaks to them, to come to us, because it's through those one-on-one meetings, which we do virtually. It's almost like detective work. We start talking, getting to know the person, and start being able to, it's like a string, you pull out it, you start to hear why they're interested in, and where is it that they really see themselves. And once we know that, then we can go deep. Then we can go really deep and start to target the opportunity. So I always tell students, never go it alone. Don't feel stressed. Don't take that on all on your own, because we're here for you. We have a whole team of people right here with you. You're never standing alone in this. You never are. So come to us. This is really what we do.
Right. Yeah, exactly, Paula. We're pulling out information, but it's not for every single major. So there may be someone who's saying, well, what about me? I'm a so-and-so major, or I was a Dyson major. I went to Pace as an undergrad, so I was Dyson. But sometimes Dyson majors is like a lot of their double majors. There's some minors, there's a blend. So all the more reason to sit with someone in career, you are someone in career services to say, okay, to probe and ask the right questions and say, okay, so why is this a double major? Why are you minoring in this? What's the long term? What's the short term? What are you interested in? It really is the package. Okay, where have you applied before? What do we have in our database or our portal? Who can we tap into from our employer relations team? Who can we talk to from alumni relations? Who can connect us with employers of interest? So it really is an individualized action plan. That's why don't get turned off or say, well, that's not for me, that's for the Leuven student, or that's for the cyber, or that's for the communications major in Dyson. Don't feel that way, because you have to sit one-on-one with a counselor to understand what your individual package, what your career aspiration is. And I always say this, even with accounting, I'm pointing to Gabriella, who was not an accounting major, right? You were an accounting.
Yeah, correct. I'm not. I am very atypical.
Atypical, but no two accounting majors, no two communications majors, marketing majors are the same. You might be taking the same courses, however, the track is different, the skill set is different, the industries of interest are different. So definitely, you don't want to feel that there's nothing for you. That's when you have to have the dialogue, so we can help and probe and get you on that right track.
And I would say right now is more than ever, right? There's no reason to be discouraged, because even PwC, I mean, our job recs right now, we're so major agnostic. We've totally made that switch, because we realize that all of those different majors, backgrounds offer different skill sets to what we are looking for. So, don't knock something off before you can actually understand what it is. And on top of that, this is a precarious time. The normal internship job type of looking after senior year, like timelines, it's not going to be what cookie cutter like it was, right? And I think that's something to at least just acknowledge, because, you know, internships are not going to be as regimented as they were last year, right? Where you have your summer internship, you have a start date, your end date. Okay, you know, you can talk to someone who did it last year and they'll tell you what their experience was. That's not how it's going to be this year. I mean, PwC is an example. We have a very rigorous internship program. This year, we're doing 2 weeks virtual digital upskilling, and you know that's how the internship's going to be. It's not going to be the same experience that someone a year ago took. And I think that's just something else, is like, don't be discouraged if you're not necessarily finding something that is like speaking to you, because this is a different time. We're in a very different time. Some companies have hiring freezes, but they'll be lifted, you know, sooner rather than later. And I think that's, you know, just something to acknowledge, is if you don't see something right now, like, don't think it's the end of the world, because right now there's just so many external factors going into everything. And, you know, the more you just stay in contact maybe with the company or the person you are supposed to work with, you know, it'll only help you in the long run. Empathy is going to be key during this time, but don't think that it is the end of the world, because there's a lot happening in the world. So that's just, you know, just some realism. You just have to acknowledge where we're at too.
Yeah, thank you for that, and for all of you, Helene, Paul, and Gabriella, because I think that's the most number one thing we're struggling with, is figuring out, is my job, you know, my dream job, even going to be available at the end of all this? Is that something that I should keep planning for?
Well, you might have a new dream job.
Yeah, and that's what I've been considering too, is just having that conversation with my friends, and kind of helps with that. Just due to time, I do want to save any final remarks for the very end, because I do want to ask Islam Akhmatov's question here. It says that, do international students have to complete CPT requirement for online jobs or internships? Paula and Helene.
Yes. Students, we have what is called the Inspire program. So as long as the international students on an F1 visa complete the requirements, the resume workshop, there's a CPT guidelines workshop, and then 2 other online workshops that are like 10, 15 minutes each. So those requirements are found on Blackboard. There's a Blackboard community for every school. So you can complete that, get on Blackboard, and it'll tell you exactly what you need and when you need it. Students would need to be on their F1 visa for 2 semesters. So I'm assuming everybody on the call is a junior or a senior. You've been on your F1 visa longer than that. So you should be able to do an internship, provided that you have at least 2 semesters at pace on your visa, if that answers the question. Let me know, Islam, if you want to just text it in.
Yeah, and I think really quickly, question from Gabby, what should we do if we need to pivot careers in the last year of college?
So I can take this one. I think that this is a very interesting question, because I think, you know, senior year, you pretty much wrapped up your at least major requirements in terms of the different courses that you need to take. I assume by now that's kind of the track you're on. Just thinking back to my year, I would have taken all my finance requirements, and I've been in my advanced finance. If something like this happened, I wouldn't necessarily just throw that out the window. But what I would do is I would look into what your major is and what's disrupting that major. Is it technology? FinTech is a prime example. Is it marketing? You know, get good at digital marketing, get good at programmatic and understanding how to make certain placement buys in the different social platforms that everyone's on right now. Learn TikTok, learn all those different types of, you know, I mean, you gotta figure out what's disrupting that industry, and then you don't necessarily have to pivot, but just be creative. You know, if I was in that situation, I would understand the ins and outs of how technology can be used for financial instruments and financial payments, because that is what's going to happen. If you're a store and you don't have a technology way and a contactless way to actually collect payment, you're going to be in a situation where who knows if they'll let you open. You know, that's the other thing. You don't know what those guidelines will be. So I think it's about look into your major, what's disrupting it, what can I learn right now? Can I join webinars? Is there newsletters I can join? Stay up to speed in what's happening, and then get good at it, or learn more about it, or find something, you know, just find something that you can actually, you know, understand why your major is shifting right now. You know, another one is fashion. I mean, fashion industry is going to be severely disrupted after this in terms of retail stores, brick and mortar, what it's going to look like, being a buyer, all that. So think outside the box. You know, what kind of retail companies are doing well right now? Maybe the ones that are only online, maybe the ones that are like the Stitch Fix of the world, and they're on an algorithm based on the outfits they should send you. I think that, you know, you need to get creative. Don't think about this as my whole plan has just shattered. Just create a new branch in that plan, and you can actually figure out something. And you know, the faster you learn this right now, it'll only be more beneficial for you long term, because you're always going to have to pivot in your career, because there's always going to be something maybe you don't necessarily realize you liked or you didn't like. And you know, the more that you can learn about something that complements what you already know, it'll only make you more marketable as an individual.
Yeah, key thing I would say too is research. I mean, at least for myself, that's what I discovered. It's just researching what's new, what's changing. And on top of that, just talk to someone professionally. I would say talk to your career services advisor, talk to one of them and see what those new changes look like, what a new plan would look like. Gabby, if you have to do a pivot, like, how does that look like? Me and you are probably in the same boat. 3 weeks till graduation and we don't know. So that's something to consider.
Come see me. Come see me.
Go see Helene.
Come see me.
But yeah, I do want to take this time to get me. Awesome. I do want to take this time to leave it open for any last remarks. I do want to start off with this question though for last remarks before we announce anything else. Nina, Gabriella, and then Paula and Henley, you guys can jump in on this as well. Gabriella, what is some advice you got as a senior that is worth mentioning? And then Paula and Helene, what's an advice you would give to a senior in the remaining 3 weeks that we have left of the semester?
Wow, putting me on the spot there. That's a good. I mean, I would say, I think, you know, you're only as, I've gotten this advice a lot, but it's like, you're only as strong, your network shows the value of your net worth. And in terms of, it's like, you know, you could be one person that's really good at what you do, but if you don't have a network, you don't have net worth, because people are going to ask about you. People are going to kind of try to say, okay, is she as good as she is? And if you don't have the people there to actually vouch for you and actually be there to support you, you know, it's not going to really help move mountains. And I think that for me in my career has been what's catapulted me from the start. I mean, you know, I've been very close to Neil Braun, you know, for a while now, and you know, he's a big mentor in my life, and I think that, you know,
leaving us, by the way.
I know, which is very sad, but you know, he's not going away, and I think that's something to remember. You know, he's not going to be the dean next year, but you know, he loves PACE students so much, and you know, he could be there in your network if that's something that you're interested in. So, so I'd say you're only as strong as your network's as strong as your net worth. So just remember who you're connected with, and the more that you have people to vouch for you, it'll go very far in your career, because that'll also come into play when you're on a work team, right? And you have to maybe transfer teams. People are going to ask about you. How was she? Did she do great? If no one's there to support you, say goodbye to your career. I mean, like, that's just the reality of it. So just remember, do not burn any bridges ever. Like, just don't, because you'll never know who you come in contact with again. Life is full circle. I've already experienced it. So just be mindful of, you want to be portrayed in a certain way. It goes back to my self-advocacy. Your personal brand is more important than you'll ever know. So just those are kind of, networking, personal brand, all of that is so important, especially now.
Thanks, Gabriella. Paula, Helene, any last remarks or advice that you would give to seniors?
I agree. Your network is your net worth. But also, even if you have a game plan and it's in the bag and life is great, you have an offer or you know what you got to do, you have applications out, interviews coming up, that's great. That's amazing. However, you want to sit with someone and just make sure that you're just bounce ideas off of, whether it's career services, whether it's somebody from your school, advisors, your peers. You really just want to talk it out and to see what other ways you can go. You want to have those options. And with our team, we have not only the employer relations team, but we have people who are on the counseling team who come from industry, whether it's Wall Street. They worked in advertising, arts and entertainment, consulting, human resources. So there's a blend of experiences that we can lend to each other. And then we can share with you as well. So definitely tap into not only the networks that you've created within the PACE community, but tap into career services so we can help you. We can be your network for you.
Yeah, and I would certainly echo that. With just a very general overall, when we think about the mindset, finding a job has always been about strategy, whether you've recognized that or, you haven't. You've come to college, you always had this idea that at the end you wanted to work here or there. It's a strategy. It's all about a strategy. And when something comes in, some external force, whether it be a market downturn or a pandemic, you still need a strategy. And your strategy was probably a good one. So we just need to, as Gabriella said, maybe we're going to add a branch. Maybe we're going to add a little bit something else to the strategy to get around some of these outside forces that are even quite tremendous, like a pandemic. But we can do that. So remember, if you're strategizing it and thinking about a strategy, it's something that you work on day in, day out to achieve. And we can help you do that. We can help you do it. It's every day. It's a mindset. And if you need us, we're there. And that's what we do all day. And as Helene said, we're well trained. We are counselors and we are professionals. We've been out in the industry. I was an economics major. I worked for the Federal Reserve. We all have all these stories. We know what it's like out there. So we're there to help you.
Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate your time and your support in doing all this.
I'll put our email addresses in.
Students, don't forget, if you signed on late, please drop in your PACE email in the chat so that Paula has record of it. Thank you so much. Nina, I want to pass it on to you for any last announcements.
I just want to say thanks so much to Gabriella. That was great advice, and I hope that we can find a way to make this conversation available to more seniors online, because I think people would really, really benefit from everything you guys said. Thank you guys so much for coming. And to all the students, we're having another one of these on Wednesday night. It's on Handshake at 6:30 with Dyson grads Ryan Barone and Caroline Craig. So it should be another good conversation.
They're great people.
Thank you.